The news broke at dawn, headlines buzzing like flies. Charles St. Morgan, Florida City's titan of fortune, dead at 70. 3 children stood by the casket, not out of grief, but anticipation. Somewhere in the crowd, a fourth, unknown to them, walked among shadows. Every eye at the funeral darted not to the coffin, but to the lawyer. Mr. Penwell. Aged, sharp, and cold. He held a leather briefcase like a priest clutching the gospel. The children approached him one by one, not for comfort, but curiosity. Elias, the eldest, stared the hardest. He'd walked his father's halls, sat in boardrooms by his side. To him, the will was just formality. He'd already picked out his office and chair. Genevieve, the second child, elegant and controlled, masked her hunger in polite smiles. She wanted the art galleries, the villas in Nice, the vineyards. A collector of beauty, but beneath, a storm waited. Matthew, the youngest, never craved the legacy. A musician. A dreamer. But even he leaned in when Penwell cleared his throat. Wealth has a way of tempting even the purest hearts. At exactly 2 p.m., in the late Charles's study, Penwell unzipped the briefcase. There will be a private reading, he said, pausing. After some details are sorted. A pause. Then the lie. A few legal fees remain. He asked each child for contributions. Not large, just enough to cover the processing. Elias paid first. Proudly. Genevieve followed out of suspicion. Matthew hesitated, then folded. 3 checks. 1 con. Outside, Penwell met with someone. A woman in her 30s, holding a single letter. Her face unfamiliar. Her last name St. Morgan. She handed him the letter. Penwell read it. Paused. Smiled, thinly. Days passed. The 3 children were invited to a secondary estate. Lakeside. Quiet. They arrived with expectations. Nerves. Private ambitions. Penwell welcomed them with wine and silence. You each believe you deserve the crown, Penwell said, unfolding the will. But this kingdom was built on secrets. One of them now claims the throne. He looked up. There is a 4th child. Silence. Then chaos. Elias stood, veins pulsing. Impossible. Genevieve's glass shattered in her hand. Matthew whispered, I always wondered. Penwell. Unmoved. The company, he said, goes to the unknown heir. Elias stormed out, screaming at the wind. She tricked him. Manipulated him. He dug into archives. Hired investigators. But he found something else, photos of his father and a woman, dated 35 years ago. Smiling. Genevieve retreated to the villa. Drowned in wine and old letters. She remembered a woman her father often visited. A business partner. It had been so obvious. Yet no one saw it. Matthew called the unknown sibling. Her name was Imani. She answered calmly. Invited him to meet. She wasn't after revenge, she said. Just what her father promised her, a chance to belong. What would you do, Matthew asked, if you were us? She smiled gently. I'd be angry. Jealous. Afraid, but also honest. You had years with him. I had none. Let me have his name. Meanwhile, Penwell began siphoning funds from accounts tied to each estate. He transferred deeds. Delayed filings. Played puppet master while the siblings fought shadows. Greed had opened the perfect door. Elias confronted Imani in the boardroom. You think this place is yours? You never earned it. Imani stayed still. Neither did you, she said. We're all just pages in his story. I just happened to be the last one. Genevieve joined them. What if we challenge the will? But Penwell had vanished. No contact. No office. No trace. All they had was a crumbling empire and a stranger with the keys. Matthew proposed a meeting. All 4 siblings. No lawyers. No walls. Just truth. Imani agreed. Elias resisted. Genevieve stayed silent. Still, they met. In their father's greenhouse. The place none of them ever liked. The meeting erupted. Quickly. Old wounds surfaced. You left me in boarding school. You took Mom's side. You never even visited Dad in the hospital. Imani watched. Learning her family through war. Then, a moment. Matthew took out his guitar. Played their father's favorite song. One by one, voices fell silent. Elias looked away. Genevieve cried. Imani closed her eyes. Music did what money couldn't. Penwell resurfaced arrested in Tampa. A housekeeper tipped off authorities. Inside his home were briefcases of stolen documents. False identities. A forged second will. His game was over. But the damage remained. The state froze the accounts. The siblings were summoned to court. The original will stood, Imani inherited the company. The others were granted shares but not control. None were satisfied. All were humbled. Elias left the city. Bought a small farm in Alabama. Grew quiet. Genevieve turned the villa into a gallery. Matthew toured with his music. Imani took the CEO seat, alone. But alone didn't mean empty. She brought new light into the company. Ethical policies. Community aid. Transparency. She hung her father's photo not in the lobby but in her office. Where she could speak to him. In private. Elias returned once. Months later. Walked through the company lobby. Unnoticed. No titles. No commands. Just silence. In Imani's office, he saw her through glass. Focused. Poised. He left without knocking. Genevieve sent Imani a painting. A seascape. To remind you, the note read, that still waters hide deep storms. But storms pass. Imani hung it beside the window. She looked at it often. Especially on hard days. Matthew and Imani stayed in touch. Not often but enough. He'd call from new cities. Tell her about stages. Motels. Strangers. Dad would have hated this life, he'd laugh. But I think he'd like that I'm happy. Penwell pleaded guilty. Embezzlement. Fraud. Forgery. But in court, he only looked at Imani. Your father asked me to protect you, he said. But power tempted me too. She didn't speak. The gavel did. One night, Imani found an old voicemail from her father. If you're hearing this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry I was late in your life. But you were never a mistake. I loved you. I was just afraid to say it out loud. She played it 3 times. Then cried for the first time in months. Not because she had the company. Not because she won. But because she missed a man she never really got to know. Only inherited. Genevieve, at her gallery opening, toasted with strangers. To legacy, she said, voice steady, and the lies it's built on. They clapped. She drank. Alone in her car later, she called Matthew. She didn't speak. He understood. Matthew asked Imani to visit their old childhood home. She agreed. The house was dusty. Untouched. He built empires, Matthew said, but forgot to build memories. Imani found a photo of all of them as kids. She stared. They buried the photo under the oak tree. No ceremony. No words. Just a small, quiet burial of what could have been. Maybe this is how we heal, Imani whispered. By letting go of what never was. Elias never called. But he sent one letter. I hated you, it began. Because you were a mirror. Showing me the son I failed to be. You deserved more than a title. You deserved him. I hope you find peace. I'm trying to. The board of directors tried to push Imani out. She faced pressure. Media. Rumors. She's not one of us, they said. But she came to every meeting prepared. Poised. Relentless. Her silence was louder than their doubts. A year later profits rose. Employees spoke of fairer wages. Community outreach programs tripled. Imani didn't just run the company. She transformed it. Still, she walked the halls like a visitor. Never fully home. Matthew wrote a song called Fourth Chair. It told the story of a family meeting with one empty seat. It played on local radio. Listeners cried. Some called in saying, "That's my story too." Truth always finds its voice. Genevieve visited her mother in Italy. "He had another child," she said. Her mother only nodded. "I always knew," she said. "He loved you, but guilt is a strange thing. It builds walls no money can break." Imani held her first shareholder meeting. Her siblings were invited. Only Matthew came. He wore a suit. Uncomfortable but smiling. "Dad would have hated this," he whispered. Imani grinned. "Good thing he's not here." They laughed. Really laughed. Not because things were fixed. But because they weren't. And somehow, that was okay. Imperfection felt more honest than anything they'd inherited. Elias sent a second letter. This one included an old key. Dad kept a storage locker. I couldn't open it. Imani went. Inside journals. Letters. One with her name. He had written pages to her. Never sent. She read each one. Night by night. They weren't perfect. Some angry. Some afraid. But they were real. By the end she felt closer to him than she ever had when he was alive. Love delayed, but not denied. The company hosted a memorial 2 years since Charles's passing. Imani gave a speech. He was a giant. But giants fall. What matters is what we build after. Not just in stock but in spirit. Genevieve attended. Quietly. Matthew played. Elias stayed away. Still his name was read. To the children of Charles St. Morgan. Each born of different stories. Bound by the same end. After the memorial, the 4 siblings met again. No lawyers. No stakes. Just coffee. Elias spoke first. "I'm sorry." The others followed. No rehearsed lines. Just broken people, finding pieces again. They visited their father's grave together. No fanfare. Just 4 hands laying down white roses. "We didn't choose each other," Imani said, "but we choose now." That was enough. The empire of Charles St. Morgan was no longer about buildings, shares, or legacy. It was about people. Scars and all. The kind of inheritance that can't be written into a will. In the end, the richest man in Florida City left behind something far more complicated than wealth. He left a family shattered and rebuilt. And one daughter, strong enough to rise from his shadow. And you, listening now, what would you do if you were a character in this play? Would you chase the money? Fight for the name? Or choose something harder? Would you forgive? Or would you write your own ending?